It is the most depressing time of year. It could be worse. You could be on an unheated boat. But then it could be worse for me as well. I might have no gas and be unable to make coffee. I might not even have a woolly hat or the 7 layers that I'm wearing. Or I might not even have plastic walls around me. They might be made of cardboard. But you've heard all that be thankful for what you've got crap. It doesn't actually help you if you are facing a deep depression of winter, which I myself feel a lot through winter. I feel every winter as if I cannot do another winter, as if it's just not possible, as if I'm not going to make it emotionally through another winter. I feel this more and more every year, to the extent that I don't believe I will be living in England next winter. Anyway, the other thing I wanted to talk about, I'm just doing up my shoes, the thing about being in your 50s, being in my 50s. I'm only going to speak for myself. I'm going to own this. Everyone's life is different. The shape of everyone's life is different. But there are similarities because we do, life has a pattern and a shape and a duration, and the generations have a duration. And I do understand that some people have no parents and hardly any relatives, even as they're going into these later years. They say that 50 is either the end of youth or the beginning of old age. Because I never look back, because that makes me old. We can forget about everything up to the age of 10, where you're just learning to function, basic functioning within a family unit, and everything from between 10 and 20, where you're learning basic functioning outside of the family unit. And then from 20 to 30, you are learning that there is much, much more advanced functioning outside of the family unit that you don't yet understand. When I say you, I do mean me, I suppose. So 20s are, you try out identities in the teens. In the 20s, you're sort of putting them into practice, I suppose, to some extent. Maybe not dressing like a goth as much and all that thing. You don't have to sort of put it all on show as much. You're actually trying to integrate things into your personality in your 20s, usually with limited success. Because you can just sense the power and the status and the establishedness of people who are older, who know who they are, and you really don't still know who you are in your 20s. And again, when I say you, I mean me. 30s are nice because you still feel extremely young. You actually realise that you're younger than you thought you were. And so 30s can be quite good. Although, for a lot of people, especially women, I suppose 30s are a decade of sacrifice. They've started to have children. And for the men as well, I guess, a decade of sacrifice, because they've started to have to go to work constantly to raise the children. Or they might be at home raising the children single-handed, the men or the women. And then oh God, I realise that all sounds very sexist, but it's the way it mostly happened in the past anyway. And that's where I'm from. I'm from the past. Now, 40s, anyway, I'm just speaking from my own perspective. My 30s were different. My 30s were self-indulgent. I did whatever the hell I wanted because I didn't have children. My 30s were fantastic. I had my own little pad, my own little apartment, and I just barely worked anyway because I had an easy job. I was working as a singer. Easy decade. Oh, I was working as a cab driver as well, but that was my own cab again. I just worked when the hell I felt like it. So 30s, great. 40s, even better. Now I feel powerful because I'm in my 40s. I feel powerful as well. I feel the weight of status has started to fill my bones. I feel the status of age, of having survived, having outlived two of my best friends. I feel them on my shoulders as well. I'm carrying them. I'm carrying their ideas because no one else will. I'm carrying what remains of my history and the history of others. A sense of responsibility, different from having children, I suppose, where you're trying to impress your own values and hoping that they endure through your children. In a way, if you're not having children and you've got friends who've died, you're the child taking them into the future as best you can, as much of them as you can, the best bits. And then we get to the big 5-0, and it's every bit as awful as you want to think it's going to be. So I felt surprised to have made it to 50. So I actually still don't know what to do with the extra time. No, that's not true. Didn't know what to do with the extra time. I now know what to do with the extra time. But that is the only way to get through this. And a lot of your life is, as Nietzsche said, I think, he who has a why can tolerate any how. In other words, a man who has something to live for can endure almost anything, I think is the English translation. You must find something to live for. And for most people it is their children. They're getting through their 50s and their 60s even, by dwelling on the lives of their children and taking a continuing interest in these creations of theirs that now have their own independence. But I don't have children. My children are in these books, and they are musical. You can have whatever children you want, but you have to have a reason. You have to have that a why. You have to have and it can't just be to make money and survive and to be alive and to pay the bills. It can't be that. It has to be much higher than that. It could be another person who you fall in love with. That could be the why. It could just be that. Oh, it's a pretty good one. It's a very good one. Because then you have all the wonderful experiences of having to constantly see everything from a different perspective, which is great fun, and have all those terrible arguments and things, and then resolve all those terrible arguments, and then expand your perspective. First in theory, and then for real. When you finally realise that you weren't just paying them lip service, that actually it's true, their ideas matter just as much as yours, and you still deep down think your idea is kind of right for you, but you now realise that other people have a different way of looking at the world that's so valid for them that its validity has an equality with yours. Now, you must find the why. Then you can put up with the how.